In the lobby, you're like, I'm ready for my interview. I was like, it's not an interview, it's a conversation.
Conversation.
I think a lot of people
I like that.
It's like question, answer, question, answer. That gets kind of boring, but you said you wanted to talk about insurance. And
Yeah, I don't know that you've ever had a conversation about insurance, and that's what your industry is, right? And
Yeah.
so, I didn't know if you'd ever reached that subject or
Yeah, no, I think you're right, because it's something that especially now, the way that I almost think of it as like an ecosystem is starting to flesh out. It's like there needs to be very pointed insurance related content, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a way to generate your own leads too from having those conversations going that direction. We've had a few, Jason, Darren,
Yeah.
Dennis, few insurance agents on. But yeah, we were talking about entrepreneurship and that being the focus. That's mainly what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And, I don't know, we were talking out in the lobby about how I remember when you first started out and everything, has it been a good experience for you? Do you regret the decisions that you made becoming a farmer's agent?
Oh, no, definitely not. It's been the most amazing opportunity I could ever imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I think as far as like small business opportunities go, it's amazing, and if you think about what most people in the back of their minds, most everybody in the back of their minds wonders what it would be like to own their own business. What if I was my own boss? What if I started my own business? Everybody has that thought in the back of their minds. Everybody does. And so I've always considered that. And if you are thinking of being a small business owner, then chances are you're going to have to get involved with sales in one way or the other. You're going to be selling either a product or a service. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Even if you open a coffee shop, you're going to be selling coffee and you're going to be marketing that coffee. Or, probably the closest analogy I can come up with for being an insurance agent is perhaps being a real estate agent. And real estate agents are great. You're going to make good money. You're going to sell a product, sell a home. You're going to make a good commission from the sale of that home. But then you need to focus on selling your next home. Otherwise, your income stops. So in insurance, you're not only earning commission for the policies that you sell, you're earning commissions on the policies that renew in your agency, because you're expected to service those policies throughout the year. So you're building that renewal base year after year, and over time that becomes a significant amount. So I always tell people, if you're going to sell, if you're going to be a small business owner, you need to sell. If you're going to sell, you need to sell insurance because of that renewal base. You're not just relying on it being a good new business month. You're going to have that renewal base that you can count on even before you sold a policy. And then if you're going to sell insurance, then you need to sell for farmers, because the farmer's contract, you can't beat it. It's the best contract in the world. It gives you the ability to own your own book of business and perhaps pass that book of business on to a son or daughter, immediate family member, which is almost entirely unique to farmers. And then, you've also have the ability to.
The family
rights provision is what we call it. Yeah, that's the first choice. If anybody is ever going to retire or leave for whatever reason, the first question we're going to ask is, is there a family member that you want to leave this to? And that's something that they won't offer at other companies. And so if you're going to sell, you need to sell for farmers. And if you're going to sell for farmers, I can't think of any better place than New Mexico to, the regulatory, the market environment for insurance out here is great. From a catastrophe standpoint, it's delightfully boring. From an insurance standpoint, you're not going to get a whole lot of hurricanes and tornadoes out here, and floods and things like that. So from a rate standpoint, from a competitive position standpoint, farmers is a very good place to be. And New Mexico is a great place to be. And if you're going to be an insurance agent in New Mexico, then you need to be a part of our
Farmers.
district,
District 25,
District
baby.
25. You need to be in District 25 because there's no beating our district. We have other great districts here in the state, but we're kind of the best, I think. So I can't say enough about this opportunity. I'm very proud of what you've been able to accomplish so far in your agency. You qualified for toppers last year, so congratulations. And
Thank you.
for those who don't know, toppers just means it puts you in the top percentile of the agents in the nation. So it's a very great place to be. Did you ever imagine that you would end up being an insurance agent when you were a kid?
No, not at all. I thought I was going to be an NBA player. I thought I was going to be a oil painter.
Oh,
I thought I
really?
was going to be a rock star. I thought I was going to go to Stanford. I thought a lot of things when I was a kid, but never said, "Hey, I want to grow up and be an insurance
See,
agent."
now that was me too. I was actually studying to be an animator in college. I was at art college, and I wanted to be an animator. And I discovered through that process that I really, really didn't want to do that. But I was working for a farmer's agent part time. And my parents both worked for an insurance company, and it was my goal in life not to get into insurance. I didn't want to. I actively avoided it, but I needed a part time job. I
It's like
started
my mom
working.
was a lawyer, so
Oh yeah, yeah. And so I was specifically avoiding becoming my parents. I didn't want to become my parents, and to my horror, I ended up liking it. I ended up liking insurance, and
seriously.
yeah. And once you start making good money, wherever you're working, you kind of get tied down to that. Industry, to that company, and everything. And
Did you get addicted to insurance?
I did, and it was at the same time that I was becoming disillusioned about the art thing. I found that it was much better as a hobby, and the rock and roll thing too. I was in a band, and so I thought, I'm going to be a rock star. I'm going to be a famous artist. One of those two.
I've seen some videos of you playing guitar and singing when you were younger.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. It popped up on Facebook or something. I was like, man, that was great.
Oh, thanks.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I was geared towards that. I thought, I'm going to make my dreams come true, and so I'll go after that. And boy, playing in LA, you came across a lot of up and coming artists, and went on to do great things. Red Hot Chili Peppers, and and frankly, much better bands than the Red Hot Chili Peppers that
There's no such thing. Blood
Well-
Sugar Sex Magic. That was my first CD when I was a kid.
yeah.
And
No, I mean-
man, we used to.
I mean, to be honest, I loved their stuff before they were famous. The stuff that that they were back when they were a
Yeah,
college band. I
the
remember
gritty,
seeing them.
funky.
Yeah, I remember seeing them in. They played at Cal State Northridge, in the cafeteria, and I still can't believe that I saw them. And
The cafeteria. That's
yeah.
cool.
I
That's
went to
like
go.
Flea right now. He's like,
Yeah.
he does these performances with kids. I saw a picture of him doing a cover, and it was like a high school band. He's like doing high school music teaching and teaching kids and mentoring kids and stuff.
He does
He's
a
in all these
lot.
movies.
He's got a place on Sunset Boulevard. Something conservatory. I don't remember the name of it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's a great place, and it is for it's for music education. He is a remarkable musician. I've seen him play like horns. I've seen him play
Trumpet
stringed
and everything.
instruments, violin.
Yeah.
I remember in the days he was playing in the clubs. He'd be there with his baby, and great guy.
There may be better bands, but they
Yeah,
hold a
I-
special place in my heart. Them and Prince, because Prince was my first cassette,
Oh yeah,
and they were my first CD when I was a
yeah,
kid.
a lot of respect for Prince. It's just it's just that I went to go see them at Isleta a couple
Chili
years
Peppers?
ago. Yeah, Keegan and I went. And we went to go see the Chili Peppers, and a couple of things. I was just really impressed about how energetic they still are, especially Flea. Especially that guy. He's got to be well into his 60s by now. Being able to play the way that he
Jump
plays,
around
jump
and have a lot
around
of
and
energy.
dance, and
Just even hitting the bass the way he does.
yeah.
Like I've bought a bass, and I've only owned a bass for a while. Well, I owned a bass when I was in high school too, but like takes a lot of energy.
It
A lot of
does, yeah.
people learn to play bass or guitar and then they realize like how much you actually have to commit to the pain of your
Oh
fingernails and your
yeah, yeah.
fingers and the
And
blisters
yeah, the calluses
and
that
then
you
they
get when
quit.
you play the bass is nothing like when,
I
for
kept
a
getting a
guitar.
blister right here on my finger.
Hmm.
I'm wondering what was going on. I was like, oh, it's from when I've been practicing the bass.
Yeah,
Mm.
I've seen calluses of professional bass players. Up to the first knuckle, it looks like it's a dead finger.
Yeah,
It's just crazy.
they're monsters.
But I also realized, in watching them play, I'm like, this is not what I would want to be doing in my 60s.
Mm.
And just being, especially, now they reached a level of fame that it's easier than most. But I mean, you see so many bands, they're playing like county fairs and
That's
stuff like.
me. We used to play the fair.
I
It's a decent gig out here. Don't knock the fair gig, dog. New Mexico State Fair gig.
But then there's also, like, I saw an interview with the lead
Probably
singer
one of the
from.
better crowds if you're like that at the balloon fiesta. Like if you could get out to there, they're big crowds. But
Well,
yeah, no, I
yeah,
hear you.
but it's a lot of
And then
work,
when you're,
and it's
especially if
just
you spent time living in LA too, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I
But
can relate.
I saw the lead singer of the Flock of Seagulls. He was interviewed, and he was just, I hate our songs, and but I
Mm.
have to play them. I have to play them night after night, and I,
Singing a song about your ex-girlfriend in front of
yeah,
your
it's
wife
just, yeah.
on stage with 5,000 people,
But
20,000 people watching you. They have to do that every day,
I just
famous rock stars.
can't even imagine.
I
But
have songs where I'm like, it feels weird singing this song anymore, But imagine if it blew up, then you stuck with it. There's this video of Dead Mouse recently, and he's playing in front of a bunch of people, and he has a song that it's like you have to play it, and you can literally he like is very open. He's like, I hate this song now because I have to play it so much. It's still great, but he doesn't enjoy it, and he plays it, and he goes like, and that's like
yeah,
literally.
yeah, yeah.
But people still like it because they're like he's being raw and real. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've so many people have the music industry stories are funny. They're crazy. They're out there. You've been in LA, seen it all.
yeah.
But you
And
hit it right on the head with, I think, with being a business owner. Um, it's funny when Jason and I had our 50th episode. I I told him like, oh, I'm a landowner in America or something, and he's all landowner in America. This sounds weird, like, uh, but for me, it was like, I'm a proud first time homeowner. I put that on my farmers toppers thing where it's like
mm,
personal
mhm.
accomplishments. I looked at my phone. I was like, I've accomplished almost every goal I set out to accomplish, and farmers insurance was the vehicle for it. It's the right vehicle. If you're passionate about customer service and sales and growing a business and helping the community, you have to find a vehicle. And you're right. It's like the best one out there. Like,
Well, I mean, like, you don't have to deal with inventory, things like that. A lot of businesses have to deal with inventory. We don't.
yeah,
We deal in a service, and I got into it kicking and screaming, but I, in the back of my mind, I always thought to myself, I'm going to keep my options open, and if something better comes along, and at that point when I was younger, I thought to myself, well, I just want to do something that's important with my life, and insurance wasn't it. But then the Northridge earthquake hit, and I don't know if you are you even old enough to remember
California.
yeah, California Northridge
I was
earthquake.
actually going to ask you about these stories. I'm not old enough to remember it, I don't think, because I was born in '86. So
Yeah,
when was it?
94, 94,
94. So I would
January
have been
17th,
8,
1994. I
living in
remember
the
the
East
date.
Mountains.
Yeah, I remember the date every single year, because that was the date that I realized, lo and behold, insurance is important. And I think a lot of people don't realize how important insurance is. They kind of see it as that pesky insurance bill that they have to pay every month. But gosh, I saw, I was actually working at the CAT Center for the Northridge earthquake at that point in my career, and
Catastrophe Center.
yeah, it changed my life. I went to go see a family, during that process, and they had called the catastrophe center earlier that day, like 5 in the morning, just yelling at the temp employee that we had hired to answer the phones. And the temp employee came up to me because I walked in and said, this guy was yelling at me. He's really upset. And I'm like, you always, get that feeling in the pit of your stomach. Okay, what's wrong? Pulled up their policy, looked at their account, really good coverage. Actually, back then you could have earthquake coverage with your homeowner's coverage.
Endorse it.
Yeah, you were able to endorse it. It was like $10 a month, and so
I think you
Southern
still can.
California.
At least you could.
No, now they've separated it totally.
Yeah, you have to
the
buy a
North,
separate policy.
yeah, the earthquake changed all of that because it was a $3 billion event just for farmers, and I think they had said that they had only collected like 100 million in premiums. So it was not a profitable line of business. It got disconnected from homeowners, and so you can't. But back then you could have it, and it was very cheap, and so everybody in Southern California had that endorsement. And so I looked at it. I looked at the policy, and everything looked great. And I'm like, well, I don't have a problem returning this call, but I kept trying to call, and it was either busy or I couldn't get through. And so my manager said, well, here, why don't you take a company car and a cell phone? He gave me a brick with the antenna on it.
Yeah.
And why don't you drive by his house and see if he's there? I'm like, okay. So it took me 3 hours to get from Pasadena to Pacoima. Do you know where Pacoima is?
I don't think so.
Not so very. I mean, it's kind of a rough neighborhood in the San Fernando Valley. And I drove all the way out there. And as I was driving into the neighborhood, all of the houses were really damaged. And everybody was camped in their front yard with dome tents and stuff like that. And I thought, man, if this guy is camped out in his front yard and that's why I couldn't get in touch with him, I'm going to be upset because the news reports said not to do that. Don't camp in your front yard because it's safer to be in your home no matter how it makes you feel. Because everybody was afraid,
That
afterwards.
Something's going to fall on their
It
head.
was scary. When the earthquake hit, I remember looking at the door jamb, which they tell you to stand under the door jamb if the earthquake is on. My door jamb was doing this. And it was traumatic, and so it was scary to sleep in our bed. It was because it happened 4:30 in the morning, and so I pull up, and sure enough, the guy is camped in his front yard. But he told me, he said, "I'm not out here by choice." They were all in their pajamas. The city came and red tagged the home, said it is condemned. You're not allowed to be in the home, and they gave them the ability to take that stuff out of their garage so that they could at least have the tents. And I said, well, don't you have friends or family you can stay with? And he said, no, we moved here from Minnesota. I think it's somewhere in the Midwest or mid. And he said, we're about ready to move back. And I'm like, okay, well, I said, look, this is unacceptable. And he goes, yeah, I know. I said, look, I looked at your policy. All of this is going to be taken care of, but it's going to take time. Look around you, your neighbors, construction companies can be very busy. The insurance companies are going to be very busy. But I am here today to tell you that this is all going to be fixed. Okay. But, and he goes, yeah, but I'm like, your house is unlivable due to a covered claim. Is your bank open? Yeah, it's open. I was there today. I said, okay, because if it's not open, I can get you cash, but that'd be another day. And he goes, cash for what? And I said, well, we need to get you into an apartment until, you're not going to have to live out here until your house gets rebuilt. It's the middle of January, even though it was California, it was cold.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, I already checked. The hotels are all booked. And I'm like, no. I said, you call this number. We're going to get you into a hotel. And I said, I'm going to give you a check for $5,000. And I said, do you need clothes? He goes, yeah. Do you need any other type of equipment to get yourself, maybe if you do, just keep your receipts, all this stuff. Everything's going to be okay. And it was at that moment that the wife, who had been sitting there on a lawn chair, just kind of staring at the ground, she started coming out of her fog, began to realize that they hadn't lost everything. That is what insurance is for. And I always tell people that I pulled into that meeting, I was an employee, but I pulled out of it, I was an owner. I said, lo and behold, insurance is important. I am doing something important with my life and I'm making good money. So I think it's great.
No better feeling than giving someone a claims check when they really need it, right?
Yes, exactly. Or, and I've over the years have had the ability to deliver, I'm not going to say the privilege, but the ability, to deliver like a death benefit check to somebody who has life insurance. which is a highly unappreciated coverage. And I don't think people realize the importance and the power of life insurance um, for your kids, for your family, so that they can continue living in the house that they lived in, even after you're gone. People don't realize that. They'll be very quick to insure their cell phone, very quick to insure their car and their home and everything. But what about the moneymaker? Like if you had a moneymaker machine, the first thing you'd want to do is insure it. Well, that moneymaker machine is you.
Yeah.
And so insurance is very important. And so what we got though is a lot of people who kind of look at it as like it's all about price. I need to find the cheapest coverage I can find, but that's a dangerous thing too. And so if somebody leaves your agency and says, I'm gonna find a better rate someplace else, that they're kind of putting themselves at risk, I think, because when they go to someplace else and they say, hey, if you can beat the rate, I'll come to your agency. Well, this is another, this other agent is going to be an independent business person like you, an independent business owner. And they're looking to make ends meet. They're looking to make sales, and so that they can keep their doors open and pay their staff and all that stuff. They're you're putting that person, you're putting pressure on that person to get the rate lower. And so they might be making adjustments to that policy that aren't in your best interest.
All the time. We warn
And
people. We say, like, we talk to other agencies, like, we're just worried that they might get rid of things. So make sure that you're not
yeah,
sacrificing this.
exactly.
I do that all the time.
The danger is though, is that they're
Don't
going
let
to
them
look
get
at
rid of this.
they're going to look at the limits. Okay. I have 100, 300 with Rob. And so 100, 300 with Progressive, same thing. It's the same thing. In their minds, it's the same thing. Well, those limits are backed by a policy contract, and that's where they're making their money. The contract is what outlines the limitations, the exclusions, the conditions under which you can file a claim, right? And in many cases, you're not going to find out what those limitations are until you go to file a claim. And that's a sad thing. Off the top of my head, I would say like replacement cost. That's something that a lot of companies have switched over to actual cash value. So if your house burns to the ground and you want to replace that,
You mean on the dwelling, even? Yeah, we see that.
yeah,
If someone has ACV on the dwelling.
exactly. They, it, or just on their personal property. A lot of them have gone to ACV for personal property, and if that's the case, then that $1,500 television that you bought, or a kick-ass stereo that you have, I said ass.
You can say ass.
Okay, all right. Does
No,
this
there's no rules.
podcast have the E
Jeff
within the box in it
Faulwell
or anything? Like,
saying, yeah. No, we've managed to keep it clean on the Apple one. It says clean still.
okay,
But
well, good.
we've dropped F-bombs. We don't edit them out.
Okay, good. I didn't know how raunchy I was allowed to get, but
However much you want. You've earned
a
it.
lot of these companies will put holes in the contract, and
Yeah, like permissive use on a car, for
permissive
example.
use on the car.
How many of these single vehicle, single driver, big guys are out there swallowing up every one single vehicle, single driver policy, but you don't have permissive use? In other words, someone borrows your car, you're
Right.
both screwed.
Your mother-in-law is staying with you, and you lend her the car to go get a carton of milk. She gets into an
And they
accident.
tell you too bad.
You would not be covered under that policy. And so those are the types of holes that exist that will surprise you. So I
Yeah.
always tell people that, they're not giving you that rate out of the goodness of their heart. You're losing something. And, I want to be sure that, and another thing too is that, they'll lower the amount of replacement cost on the home. You can insure your home for 80% to insurance to value. So if, just to keep the math simple, if you're
Co-insurance, right?
if you're
Keep
yeah the
above
co-insurance
co-insurance.
clause. So if your home is worth, if it will cost $100,000, just to keep the math simple, to rebuild your home, it means that you need to have at least $80,000 worth of coverage. And so ideally though, you should cover your home for 100% to replacement cost. That 80% isn't there as an option. It's meant to be a buffer for when inflation happens. So like you insure it to value, and then inflation happens and you need to adjust it accordingly. They give you that 20% as a buffer. not to as a starting point that like, oh, this is the minimal that you need to. And there are agents out there that will insure it for 80% the value. The problem is that the second second goes down to 79%, you're going to get dinged even if you file a small claim. You're
Yeah,
not going to be able.
the client is gonna get less money than they think they want for a partial
Yeah,
recovery
yeah.
because they're gonna say it's a percentage of how much you're insuring it to. That's the
So you
co-insurance
just
idea,
got to be
right?
careful. You got to be careful. You never want to. You you never you just need to know what you're going in. The thing that I love about farmers is that they're very straightforward. Hey, we may cost more, but it's because we have a very comprehensive policy.
I had a client um, pass away. He was on his motorcycle and he was killed by an uninsured motorist.
Mm,
And the limit was 25,000. And the claims adjuster called me and said, it looks like he's got 250,000 for the other guy and 25,000 for himself. And he said, but I've been doing this for 30 years. And he said, I'm going to try to get him as much money as possible. That was the first thing the claims adjuster told me on the phone.
right.
That moment, I was like, we really care, like we really care about the client.
Yeah.
I was hit by an uninsured motorist myself in 2015. My company has a lizard for a logo at the time, and I got rear-ended. My Jeep had $3,000. The cross member was bent. The rear was messed up. The lady, unfortunately, they were going pretty quick. It was like it locked up at I-25 where you go north to go to Denver, and at the Big I there's traffic everywhere, and then right there where you get off to go north, it always stacks up on the right hand side of I-40 going west, and it went from everyone going 80 to red all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I ended up in the shoulder because I swerved around the car in front of me and didn't hit them. And then the car behind me went to do the same thing to avoid the traffic that was locked up, but they didn't have very good brakes and they were following too close. They hit me at like 55. And my chiropractor and medical bills were at 3,000 or something. And the company's first off, they have a third party claims adjuster. It's not the same claims team.
With the lizard.
Yeah.
With the lizard. Okay.
There was a third party. They offered me $600, and that was their first offer. And I was like, well, my mom's a lawyer. This was before I started in insurance and 11 years ago now. And I'm like, I think I can figure this out on my own. And I start typing up these emails to negotiate with this claims adjuster person. And it took me 3 months to settle. And it's just like on a daily basis, we're handling things faster than that by like,
Our claims people are the greatest. And, I mean, I think it makes a big difference, when they are employees of the company.
Yeah.
I think, but they're just top-notch team of people. I can't say enough about our claims. But, at the same time, though, they've got a great policy to work with. It's when you have a comprehensive policy, you're able to say to the company that, or to the customer,
better coverage.
that it's covered. Unless it's earthquake, flood, or intentional acts, it's covered.
Yeah.
Whereas other companies will sell, they call it an HO3, where it's a named peril policy. It has to be on their list of named perils in order for it to be covered, which will cover them 85% of the time. Okay, which is good, right? But the analogy I always give people is that, like if you needed to have your airbag replaced on your car, do you have an airbag on your car?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so do you like having an airbag on your car?
Yeah.
It protects your family, right?
Yeah.
If they tell you that it needs to be replaced and you go and, they say, yeah, it's going to cost you 15 grand to get this replaced, and you go shopping around and you find a guy who's willing to sell it to you for 3 grand, but
it may or may not deploy.
It'll only work 85% of the time. Is that a value? I mean, that's the thing I always try to, because again, insurance is important. and people love they buy their dream car and everything, and then they go, I can't believe the insurance costs so much for this, but you got to see it as part of the car. If they told you that your dream car comes with these special tires that are going to cost, an additional, $100,000, well, then you can't afford the car. If you can't afford the wheels, you can't afford the car. And the same is true for if you can't afford good insurance, then you can't afford the car. And, I was back, years ago, I had the ability to sell health insurance along with the other stuff, the farmers provide. And I found that people would sit there and they would scrutinize their health insurance. Like, wait a minute, how much would I have to pay if I'm in the hospital? Wait a minute, how much out of pocket would I have to if, in this situation? And they scrutinize every little thing. Then we would talk about their auto insurance, and it was, oh, whatever's cheapest. And I thought, well, it seems to be backwards, right? Now they understand the value of health insurance because everybody has either been through an ordeal that has to do with healthcare costs, or they know of a friend that have had to deal with an ordeal. And you know what? They don't want to have to file for bankruptcy because of a healthcare issue, right? And so they scrutinize that, right? The problem is that if you put somebody into a hospital because of an auto accident that was your fault, you are responsible for their healthcare costs, right? And what's worse than filing for bankruptcy? Not being able to file for bankruptcy. Because if you get sued, you can't file for bankruptcy to protect yourself from that lawsuit. You can file for bankruptcy to make your other bills go away so that you can give the lawsuit more money, but you cannot protect yourself, with bankruptcy from a lawsuit. And so I would argue, I mean, ideally you need to have both, but if it was one or the other, those liability limits that you have on your auto are so important. And I try to have as much liability coverage as I can afford. And it's extremely important to have those liability coverages because when you get sued, that's what's going to get you keep you out of court. If it's minimum limits and the amount of healthcare costs that you're responsible for that other person is like $300,000, you're going to be responsible for that additional amount, period. And there are people
That's
out.
like average for a severe injury.
Yes. And it's not uncommon.
Sideswipe somebody.
It's not uncommon. These are not uncommon. If they were uncommon, then why do you see so many billboard ads for attorneys? Accident attorneys up I-25 and I-40.
Those numbers keep getting higher too, especially for semi-trucks. Semi-trucks are getting into it's like, I saw one, I swear it was 80 million or something. And, personal, at
if
least.
you have enough coverage,
yeah,
it goes away. Then the lawyer is going to tell the other party, like, well, wait, your damages have all been covered by the insurance. What are the damages here?
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I thought maybe we can get some more. No, the judge isn't going to go for it. The judge, if there are no damages anymore, then it's not going to go to court.
They don't have to go after your personal assets because
exactly.
we're the protection.
But if you don't have enough coverage, it can absolutely go to court, and then the floodgates open. Then they can go after pain and suffering, emotional trauma, all this other stuff, because the lawyer is going to take a pretty large percentage of that overall settlement, and they know that, and so they need to get more than what the damages are. And and again, if you think that doesn't happen, then why do you see so many ads for personal injury lawyers? It seems these days it's crazy because if you watch TV, it's all about lawyer ads and pharmaceuticals.
Yeah,
it's just all over the place. That's really all it is these days.
They go after the equity in your house, the money in your checking account. So we were talking about auto accidents in general, and how big of a concern is it that someone actually gets into an accident? Because everyone always says, I'm a really safe driver.
Oh, yeah.
It's never going to happen to me.
Yeah, Yeah, everybody's a good driver, but that's why they call them accidents, right? Because it's unexpected.
Not on
And
purpose.
yeah, and
Not on purposes.
sometimes you're, just not at fault, but sometimes you are. And nobody anticipates getting into an accident, but stuff happens, right? And that, yeah, everybody's a good driver until something happens. And people get distracted. It happens. It just happens to everybody. And I even catch myself. I was in an accident recently. It was a very minor fender bender, but it was one of those things where I wasn't thinking, and I can't remember the last time. The last time I got into an auto accident, I remember I was in the state of Washington, which would have been, more than almost 20 years ago that I've been in an accident, and that wasn't my fault. And so I can't really remember the last time it was my fault that I got into an accident, but it was absolutely my fault. I got up to the corner and I thought the guy in front of me went. He made a right-hand turn on red and I thought he went. And so my attention went to the left here. I'm looking the oncoming
Because he
traffic.
was clear, and you just assume he
Yeah,
would do
I
what
thought
you would do if you were
I
in his
thought he was
position.
gone. I thought he was
I
gone.
did
I
something like
saw
that in
the
the car the
opening.
other day.
I saw the opening
Mm.
and I start moving forward and boom. I tapped him. I tapped him. And I thought, but I use that Signal app on my phone. For Farmers has a Signal app. I got a I got a notification immediately. Were you just in an accident? I barely felt it, but my phone knew I got into an accident.
Gyro or
I said, "Yes, I got into an accident. Do you need assistance? Yeah, are you in need medical
is
assistance?
it an
No.
emergency? No.
Do you need a tow truck? No. Do you need to file a claim? Yes." And I go out and I trade information with the guy in front of me. I get back in my car. My agent calls me. "Were you in an accident?" I'm like, "Yeah." Because I was very appreciative. The same thing, my daughter got into an accident and he called me. He was the first one who called me. "Hannah got into an accident." I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, she's okay. Is she okay?" "Okay, good." So just, it really is, it really means a lot when you have an agent who's really engaged.
What kind of car was the car in front of you?
It was a Honda Civic.
What were you driving?
I was driving a Hyundai Tucson, and minor damage, but damage to my vehicle was more than $10,000,
Yeah.
and the damage to his vehicle was probably comparable. So, it used to be that the little fender bender was just a little fender bender. Now that fender has, you know, cameras in it, sensors, and all that stuff, and so it's not. There's no such thing as a cheap accident anymore.
Yeah.
But and the adjuster called me
Well, it took us
first thing
8
next morning.
renewals to recover the cost on our loss ratio from
Yeah,
that.
I know, right? But I was impressed with the way Farmers stood up.
Oh,
There
yeah.
was everything was taken care of within a couple of weeks as far as as far as the repairs and everything. And they had already talked to the other guy, and he was already set up. And so it yeah, it's might have to cost more, to be with Farmers, but God, it's so worth it.
My mom was in a head-on in October, and she had
She
her.
okay?
She's okay
A
now.
head on.
Yeah, it was
How
actually pretty bad.
fast?
I've talked about it quite a few times on the podcast, but she, um, 35. It was over here by the range,
Okay. Okay.
and yeah, 2 drivers with the head-on, but the she had a lot of rehab to do physically. Like her bone was sticking out of her arm. There's like a small bone in her sternum that was fractured. Her
Nice.
collarbone was had a small fracture in it. It was broken.
How long ago was this?
October. But the total loss settlement was done like within a week of the claim. Like it's like, here's your offer, fair offer. She had that, and then all the subrogation and everything
Oh yeah.
just
Yeah.
handled like you can't thank people enough for how much comfort it brings you to be like, no, you're taken care of. She had good coverage, obviously, and everything, but like, it's just one, just over and over, you get those experiences where it's just like, what would it be like without Without that, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Glad
and
we had it.
I don't know. At the same time, as my little fender bender, there was another kid in the office who was in an accident. Again, it wasn't that big of a deal, but the other driver was at fault, and the other driver was with a different insurance company. And to see the contrast between my experience and his,
Hmm.
it was pretty profound.
That's one of the hardest things is taking care of your client when the other carrier is responsible and now you're having to navigate the other carrier and you're like, well, I have insurance. It's like, well, you don't, your insurance isn't responsible because we're in an at fault state. So the other person's insurance is responsible. And now you're navigating it with them. And like, it's more, more work. It's like, why can't everybody just
Yeah,
use our insurance agency? Then it'd be easier.
it's just I the way I put it with people is that like we'll piss you off up front, you know,
Yes. We
but
might
you'll
be a
be
little more
really happy.
conservative.
You'll be really happy with us on the back end if you ever
It's
have to
funny how
file a claim.
direct you are. Yeah, we were
Yeah,
talking about like people who are very successful, know what they're doing, handling stuff, and the words they use being powerful, like Korsgaard, and he's teaching you how to be the power position, right?
right, right.
And it just changes how effective you are, I think, with the messaging and words that you use. Yeah, I tell people we're a conservative company, right? We might do a little bit more upfront. Like I had someone ask me the other day, they're like, why do I need a letter of experience? They're with AAA. It's like, well, for some reason in New Mexico, AAA, I don't know, this would be amazing to run this up the chain because AAA doesn't show up in our software
Right,
for
right.
whatever reason.
Yeah.
And it's not
As prior
reporting.
coverage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, it's like, well, we can manually verify your continuous coverage discount. And she says, well, why do I need that? I said, well, this is exactly why. I just answered it. She said, okay, cool. I'm just requested it. Right. And when you're new, you'll be like, why do I need that? Oh, well, just because I'm not really sure, but we do or whatever. And people be like, I'll just stay. I don't want to do it. But if compared to California too, though, like they would need your writing auto, you need your marriage certificate, they need a copy of your driver's license, they need photos, 3D
Yeah.
photos of the car.
Yeah. Blood sample.
Yeah.
Yeah. All sorts of stuff.
They're gonna go
But
on a ride along like at the car dealership. Like
yeah.
let's
Yeah.
insurance agent sitting in your car on the way to work for 3 weeks. Could you imagine?
And AAA is a great company. We're not saying that, they're a great company. It's
For
just
towing and roadside.
that one part of it, is like for some reason they don't patch into the system that everybody follows that verifies prior coverage, and
Yeah.
that's the frustration. But you
Yeah.
know, bottom line is though is that I mean, insurance is important. Insurance is very
Do the
important.
work up front.
Yeah, yeah,
Take a little time. Actually, you should learn a little bit about it. If you have to provide documentation for something,
yeah. Or like
get
work
it
with
done.
somebody who is going to take that off your shoulders.
Yeah.
Work with a
All you got to
professional.
do is click. We do everything there. You
Yeah,
just send it to you, and all you can do is click it.
work with somebody you trust who is going to lead you down the right path, as far as coverages go, and then you don't have to deal with it. It's like working with a CPA. If you work with a CPA, you're not going to be losing sleep over your tax return every year. And boy, I hope I didn't break any laws or whatever. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with insurance. And so not only should you work with a professional, you should work with somebody who's going to meet with you every year, review your coverages, make sure that everything is still appropriate, and make sure that you're getting all the discounts for which you're qualified. And
Seriously.
that's the way to do it.
Well, our training, I mean, you're a big part of it. Like, we didn't even really get too much into your background on what you do. Like, um, but for me personally, like, just the way that I manage my week, a lot of it came from your coaching and the way the company's trainings. We just got done with an amazing training. And, we've had a few things. We had the gala, we had the agency or the district meeting, and the proteges are meeting every Thursday. I had a business coach I was meeting every Wednesday. We're constantly getting the best talent in the nation teaching us from their experience so that we can make sure our clients don't make mistakes and we don't make mistakes because we've learned from the best in the business. That's something that is extremely valuable and appreciated. And I think that's what makes the agency levels solutions to real world problems what people really are paying for the claims when something bad happens, and the agency that you can still come in, still have these conversations face to face, over the phone, text message, omni channel way of reaching somebody who has that experience downloaded into their blood. It's like all of us, we're addicted. It's like we
Yeah,
dream about it, we're obsessed with it. So
I appreciate that.
we're not going away. It's not going to be a robot doing it ever. You
Well,
know what I mean?
that also makes the farmer's opportunity a little more unique, because you are in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself. We offer
Yeah.
support so that, um, my official role is agency business consultant, ABC, and it's my job to work with a group of agents within our district, to make sure that, they're kept on the right path. I'm able to work with them on their business plans. I'm able to follow up with them on their goals throughout the year. We can look at their financials and figure out if they're on the right path. All of this stuff. You're not alone. If you opened up your own bakery down the street, you'd be on your own. But in this situation, you're able to be a small business owner, but not alone. You're
Yeah.
not by yourself, which
Well,
can
and
be
the
a scary
benefit
thing.
passes over to the customer because there's a lot. How many companies are there where somebody isn't even licensed, or maybe they're licensed but new, and there's this firewall of customer service where you're not getting somebody, you're not getting president's council and toppers attention for free, basically.
Right,
We don't
right,
charge broker fees and all that stuff
right.
extends to people. It's
Exactly.
like, I think we're gonna defeat AI and computers and online. I'm up for the challenge,
Well, I'm not against AI. I think, if it's used properly, it can really enhance what you're doing. Um, but I I
What
I do
about it
think that
as what it replacing agents? What about technology replacing agents? Do you have input on that?
well, I don't know. I think time will tell. I think if agents make themselves valuable, then they will never go away. But in my mind, the whole reason that we have agents is to be able to provide that personalized touch, to be out there um, proactively marketing themselves. It's a unique opportunity because what Farmers says is like, hey, it's your business. You get to run it. You get to choose what markets you go after. You get to choose the area in which you do business. You get to come up with a plan of attack. And Farmers says, okay, as long as you're not breaking any rules, we'll partner with you on that, and help you in some ways financially and with education and guidance and all that sort of stuff. And that makes it a very unique and exciting thing. You're able to get creative in your approach, and like this podcast is a very creative approach, and that I applaud you for that. It's great. But,
Thanks.
this is part of why I like the independent contractor side as opposed to the corporate side. Corporate, very structured. You weren't allowed to really get a whole, very creative unless you filled out a bunch of forms and let a committee vote on it or whatever.
Sure.
But here on the independent contractor side, that's what makes it kind of fun. Um, Coming to work here in this district, coming to work for Jason, who he and I have become really good friends, really good partners. And it made it fun. It makes everything fun because we're able to get creative. We're able to take a different approach to make the business more fun. And as I approach retirement, I think those types of things are a little more important to me than making money.
Yeah, for me it's like between focusing on real estate, residential, commercial, restaurants, personal lines, life, like on any given day, if I get bored with something, I get focused on something else. Like you're saying, it's creative to we get to decide what kind of markets we go after, how we structure certain things. Like the train is going, I see it. It's like just get on. All you got to do is what other people are doing to be successful.
Yeah.
But your method of like Mondays marketing, Tuesdays internet leads, Wednesdays commercial walk and talk, Thursdays follow up. It's like I've stuck to that every single week,
Well,
and
good, good. I mean, the
gives you
really
enough variety.
the point is that you come up with a system to ensure that you are touching on certain things on a regular basis without fail. You know, there are certain priorities in your life that you accomplish without fail. And it could be as simple as, we have dinner as a family every night without fail, or the kids get to school every day without fail. Those are the priorities in your life. And you have to apply those priorities, to business as well. For your business to be successful, you need to apply certain priorities without fail. And marketing is a big part of it. In order for your business to grow, you need to be marketing, doing certain activities on a regular basis, predictably. And I loved it because when I was working part-time for that agent while I was going to art school, it was mailing Monday. We would mail. And when you think about it, in the old days, we had to go to the printer. And then I had to sit there and fold and stuff envelopes and seal the envelopes and put the postage on it, and address each envelope to send them out. These days, everything and there's an expense associated with all of that. Stationery costs, postage costs, the paying me to do all the work and everything. There are costs associated with that. And now we have automated systems that is sending stuff out for free via email, or there's still mailing options that you can do that I think still should be used. But
A lot of
and there's a
people having a lot of success with mailers still.
yeah, exactly. And even a lot of the old school stuff still works. Telemarketing still works. Door to door still works. It's just, what are you willing to do? If you've got that activity happening without fail, then the sales happen without fail. And when you're not focused on that stuff, then then it's not going to happen. And that's really my point with that. It doesn't matter what system you have going. I mean, you can get an automated system like through Agency Zoom. I don't know if that you work through
I
Agency
use
Zoom.
it, yeah.
Agency Zoom, all of that stuff happens in the background without you doing anything, and at a cost that is a fraction of what I remember
It seems like a lot at first until it's working, and then you're like, oh, this is the best thing ever.
yeah, and the agent that I worked for, and not, I mean, this was back in 1988. 1988, he told me that he spent about 20 grand a year on marketing. And at the time, that made me freak out. I thought, man, that's a huge figure. But he said that he stopped doing it one year. He looked at his P&L statement and said, you know what, I'm going to stop paying that $20,000, and that'll be like giving myself a $20,000
Sounds like a terrible
raise.
idea.
Yeah, and it ended up happening that his income went down that
I bet.
year. In spite of the fact that he cut $20,000 from his expenses, he choked himself, new business wise, and he wasn't, things went backwards, and he didn't qualify for toppers, which was death for him. And so he turned it back on. And he said it was at that point that the light bulb went on. And I realized that my job is to market and sell for farmers. And I didn't do that for a whole year. I thought I would save money, but I lost money. And so investing in the agency is very important. Getting staff, buying leads, having certain systems in place to ensure that you're getting out in front of people. It's key.
Yeah.
I remember, I kind of, I don't know, I mentioned that process a lot. Mailing Monday, telemarket Tuesday, walk and talk Wednesday, throwback Thursday, which is, you go back and try and win
Win
back.
backs, quotes on
Yeah.
close, follow ups.
Yeah, stuff like that. And FFR Friday, which is a farmers friendly review. If you do that every week, beautiful things happen. And I
True.
mentioned that to a
It's
lot of
very
people.
true.
I think you're one of the few people who've come back and said, I actually follow that. And
Oh, I
and
wrote it down. I
helps.
have a block schedule, and
Good.
it's funny because like you use it to keep your guardrails on when you can't think of what you're supposed to be doing. Now you know what you should be doing. And then if you do it enough times, now all of a sudden you just have work that's obvious. It's like, I have all this stuff that I need to do that is ready. Now then you're making money. And it's like, It works. You just trust it. And the thing I like about it is just how much variety that comes from it, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's key too. You want to diversify your mix of business that you're taking in, because if all of a sudden there are wildfire restrictions and you can't sell homeowners policies as much as you were used to in the past,
Yeah.
you have something else going.
Talk a little bit about that in California, because, you know, there's a little bit of the wildfire conversation happening in New Mexico, but you always put it in perspective with
Oh yeah,
your
I mean, we're
experience
not
from the
we're not dealing
earthquakes
with.
and the,
Yeah, I mean, if you talk about natural disasters, I used to joke that California didn't have a change of seasons. What they had was earthquakes, mudslides, um, wildfires, and it was always one natural disaster or another that they're dealing with over there. And so as a result, the insurance costs are very high. But the cost of everything is high out there, and so to rebuild a home is going to cost more than it costs here in New Mexico. So they deal with a lot of different challenges. But on the upside, the premiums are a lot higher, and so the agents are making more money with less sales. And so that's kind of the plus side for them. But from a new business standpoint, it can be very frustrating. There are some homes out there that they cannot find coverage for, and so it has to be provided through
now even.
their fair plan through the state. And so it's a very, very challenging market.
Didn't you go through a moratorium on homeowners? You have a
Well,
story about that.
yeah, so that kind of goes back to the Northridge earthquake. When the Northridge earthquake hit, prior to that, there still is a state law in California that says that if you offer homeowners insurance in the state, you must also offer earthquake coverage. Before the earthquake, it could be added on as an endorsement to the policy. When the insurance companies weren't willing to do that anymore, it created a situation where, like, well, if you're not going to offer earthquake coverage, then you can't offer homeowners insurance. That moratorium lasted for more than 2 years. And so you could not write homeowners insurance in the state of California, and it became a crisis. But it forced the state to come up with an alternative, and the alternative was the California Earthquake Authority. So, we have our own individual challenges here in New Mexico that's unique to New Mexico, and we deal with it. And they're dealing with it in California. Farmers did not have to leave the state. Over the last go around, there was a profitability issue among all companies because inflation got too out of hand after COVID hit. There's this company called AM Best that evaluates the strength of the insurance companies, and they want to see that you have a
Surplus.
a surplus of money sitting in an account, and they measure it against the amount of risk you have on the books. And there's got to be a big buffer there for the event of, like, a hurricane or a tornado or a wildfire. They've got to have that buffer there. So if this happens and their surplus is depleted and they don't like the amount of buffer that they have, they will downgrade you. And if you get downgraded, that could be a disaster for an insurance company, because they grade us the same way they do in school. So you can have A plus, A minus, B plus, stuff like that. But the mortgage companies, the finance companies that are out there, they require that you place your insurance with an A-rated company. They require
The
that their
banks.
customers, the banks, they require that their customers place their insurance business with an A-rated company. So if you slip to a B, that could be catastrophic for an insurance company. So the when that crisis hit, a few years back, there were a few companies out there that were in danger of being downgraded to a B, and they were forced to leave California. They were forced to leave because what happened was not this. What happened was an increase of their risk because of inflation, and so they didn't like the buffer there. So these companies left California and they left Florida to dump the amount of risk that they have on the books so that they could increase that buffer zone and avoid being downgraded.
The ratio.
Yeah, and the nobody reports on that effectively. They make it sound like, oh, because of profit concerns, and they They think, oh, the greedy
The
insurance
big
company.
bad insurance
Yeah,
company.
the
Yeah.
greedy insurance companies. Something. Oh, these are insurance companies that are trying to avoid a downgrade.
National bankruptcy,
Yeah,
basically.
they can't, because if they get downgraded to a B, they lose all that
Then you have
business.
no more new business.
Yeah. So what percentage of
dumping risk.
mortgage, what percentage of homeowners have a mortgage on their home, and their bank is going to tell them, oh, you can't be with that company anymore because of the B rating.
Meanwhile,
Catastrophic.
We hung tight in California. It's been an interesting roller coaster, right? But
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a challenge. Florida to Texas to some extent has always been, because Florida and Texas, they're, susceptible to hurricanes. And so we've always avoided kind of that part of the country, and expanding to that part of the country specifically because of the hurricane risk. It's such a difficult thing to manage and to ensure that, the insurance company is going to, break even, let alone make a profit in those areas.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida especially, but California is kind of that way too. It's got, the whole, the prices are higher, and also there are catastrophic risks out there that they're not really comfortable with. But
More and varied and
yeah, and farmers, I don't think will ever leave California because that's where we got our start. They started out of Los Angeles, and they have a really strong presence there. And I don't think that they would ever leave. But farmers has been very conservative about the way they manage that surplus to policy ratio. They're pretty conservative about that, and so that when things get kind of challenging, they're usually able to weather the storm and get through it. And that sometimes means that we're dealing with frustrating as salespeople. It becomes a frustrating market to do business with sometimes. But then the things finally catch up with these other companies, and then we're the ones who are fine, and
yeah.
all ends up working out in the end for
It's
us. I
just
think.
like how if you don't have really good marketing, you have nothing to sell, right? You have to
Right.
have someone to sell it to.
Well, yeah, and the diversification really helps, doesn't it? To be able to. I had a guy
Sell more bagels.
sell more bagels. I was going to tell you, I had a guy who owned a coffee shop.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna tell you. You should tell it.
He owned this coffee shop, and
Shoot, I ruined it.
the rains in Colombia were really bad, and it caused the price of beans to go through the roof. And I went in that day, and back in those days, I would walk into the.
It was the rains.
It was the rain in Colombia.
So it was too wet.
Yeah, and
Interesting.
it caused the price of beans to go through the roof. And this poor guy, he was running his own little coffee shop there in Camarillo, California, and I used to like to go in there and support him. It was like it wasn't a Starbucks, and that I felt like I was doing some kind of public service by going to. But I always went in with the exact change for my large mocha, and I'd go in there and I'd spill the change on the door. Large mocha, and one day he says to me, "That's not enough money." What are you talking about? That's what I bring in every day. Pointed to the marquee behind him. The price went up, and it went up percentage-wise. It went up a lot. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm getting a regular cup of coffee then. And he says, yeah, that's what everybody's doing. I said, so how's this going to impact your business? He told me about the rain in Colombia. I said, oh, yeah, I saw that on the news. And, he says, this is going to impact me about $3,000 a month. And I'm like, really? And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, well, I just need to sell more bagels. Now, he was so matter of fact about it. I just
knew
need to sell more
exactly what he
bagels.
needed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought about it, and I'm going, that's the way he has to. He doesn't have the ability to call Colombia and say, you're killing me with the price of beans down here. You need to lower the rate. He doesn't have the ability to do that. He's an independent small business owner, doesn't have any support really other than himself. And he had to figure it out.
Gotta adapt.
Yeah. And so I always tell agents, if things are challenging with auto insurance or challenging with homeowners insurance, you have plenty of bagels at Farmers.
Oh, yeah.
And Farmers is unique too because we have a very flexible contract. You have the ability to sell for other companies where most captive agencies don't have that ability to to build up that renewal base, not only with farmers, but with other companies as well. But that gives you the flexibility for if it's not eligible for farmers or if something that they're not willing to take,
Seriously,
you can place it with these outside companies. And that's a
it's a big deal.
huge deal. It's a huge deal. It's almost like a hybrid between a captive agency and a broker, and
Yeah.
I that's another
Device
reason why the contract is so much
protection,
better.
commercial,
Yeah,
life.
right.
Like if you're better at one thing or you just pivot or the rates right now, it seems like with all the changes, Bob 360, the new life journey, I feel like we're on fire right now. It's
Oh,
like
it's great.
they're
I mean,
fixing so many things. Things are getting smooth. It's
and the
like,
company's always looking 5 years ahead, and so they're going to make
mm,
changes, and you're going to go scratch your head and why are we doing this? But then a few years go by, and go, oh, well, it's
starts to
good
click.
thing that they did this, and it's good. I mean, I think you're getting the best of both worlds. I mean, you're self-employed, but you got the support as if you were, almost like an employee. But it's a great thing, and great business to be in, great company to be in, great district to be in for sure. Um, so
You have such a good handle on like the bird's eye view, but also very good way of giving like detailed, specific advice to agents. And you started when you were 9 years old calling ex state leads. I remember
yeah,
this
yeah,
story.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
So my dad went through his training at Farmers. He was with Farmers, and he was going through the executive training program, and he had to be an agent for a time, and he would pay me 10 cents an ex date. And I would open up the phone book. Back in the days before the do not call registry, I was able to open the phone book and just start calling people in my squirrely 9-year-old voice, um, and say, I'm calling from Farmers Insurance. And they go, like, what? What are you doing? What are you saying to me, kid? And I'm like, well, calling from Farmers Insurance. Really? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay. That's my 1970s adult voice I'm using. He had a cigarette, I'm sure.
Man, she.
Yeah. And he says, okay. And I'm going to say, so what are you doing? And my dad says he's going to give me 10 cents for every X date I can collect. What's an X date? It's the date that your policy comes up for renewal, and he'll do a free quote for you, to make you compare. He goes, really? I'm like, yeah, at the very least, you could feel good about the rate that you're currently paying. Then you go, all right, kid, here you go. Don't spend it all in one place, but it got me thinking, like, shoot, if a 9-year-old can do this, then anybody can.
Seriously.
It's really,
I had a 19-year-old work for me one time who worked at the jewelry store in the mall. Got him up to 10K in his first month. No insurance background before.
I mean, it's just, it's not an aptitude thing. It's an effort thing. If you're willing to put forth the
Showing
effort,
up.
yeah.
I say you have to show up, and then you have to show up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just, if you put in the work, beautiful things happen.
What do you know about this concept of, because we're talking about surplus and AM Best, the companies that rate insurance companies, the underwriting and risk carrying on a large scale. What about this concept of reinsurance? How much does that come across? How much have you, I don't know. What's going on?
Reinsurance is an interesting concept. It is insurance company insurance, so like it's almost like an umbrella policy for an insurance company. And it basically states that, the insurance company, if the claim is this amount, the insurance company will pay for it. But if it gets beyond that, then the reinsurance kicks in and pays the difference. Okay. So it works exactly like an umbrella policy, I would say, where, your auto insurance will
With
pay
an
up to this amount.
underlying limit and then an
Yeah.
excess
Then
or
it'll
some
pay up to $1 million, except
analogy. It's
with
an analogy.
reinsurance, you're talking about billions of dollars. So it's insurance company insurance. So the amount that we're paying for in reinsurance premium, kind of comes into the equation of our expenses as an insurance company, and it will impact our rates. But
Like, for example, with the Palisades fire, that's probably one of those moments where you're like, in this area,
right,
we didn't expect that. I mean, the number was in the tens of billions,
Oh,
right? In the
it
50
was,
or
yeah, it was the worst. I know it was definitely the worst. It surpassed the Northridge earthquake, which was the worst catastrophe in California up to that point. But then once I think it might actually be the single most devastating um,
single event.
single event in the nation.
Hmm.
I'm not 100% sure on that,
Sure.
but it was, boy, it was really
Up
bad.
there for sure.
And, I point to that to remind people that, like, sometimes, our underwriters can be pretty picky about, the type of business that we put on the books. And they'll say to us, well, he's in a residential area, it shouldn't be all that. But, you know, Pacific Palisades is different than Malibu. Malibu is kind of like these open plains and trees and hills, and Palisades is a little more flat, a little more like a residential area. It kind of demonstrates just how quickly something can happen when you've got a fire that breaks out, and during the Santa Ana winds, with the wind blowing, it'll devastate a bunch of homes in a matter of minutes. It's just crazy how bad that can escalate.
Mother Nature.
Yeah, but reinsurance did come into play for the Palisades fire. So um, whenever something like that happens, if you are covered with reinsurance, that your liability limit ends at a certain point, and then it's going to be taken over by reinsurance, and that helps protect that surplus a little more.
Yeah.
But reinsurance, interesting concept, and a
There's
lot of people don't
not a
realize that's out
whole
there.
lot of companies out there reinsuring top 10 insurance companies, right? Isn't it
Yeah,
a very small thing once you get down to
no,
that?
I think there's like, I was
I mean,
surprised at some
limited
of,
amount of people is what I mean, kind of.
yeah, some of the companies out there. When I read these articles after the fire, where some of the companies out there were saying, well, and we don't have reinsurance to cover this. And that surprised me
Do
because,
you know if we do or not?
oh, we do. We definitely have reinsurance. But, I was surprised at some of the bigger companies out there that, really didn't have reinsurance on there. And I don't know what the reasons for that was. It could be that the cost of reinsurance in California is ridiculous or whatever. But, you never know when disaster is going to strike. And so having that additional coverage, I think, is important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're nearing the end of our time. I could talk to you forever. We'll have to
Yeah,
get you
that went
back
quickly.
on.
That went quickly.
It goes by fast.
Do you think people are still awake?
Oh,
When we're
100%.
talking about, insurance, I'm just like, if I'm choosing a, podcast and I'm like looking to, get myself, to bed and to sleep quickly, then I might grab an insurance podcast and listen to that.
No, the insurance agents are locked, and the clients, they benefit from this kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because I think, a lot of people out there, like I said, they don't understand the value of insurance. Once it became a law, once it became something that people had to have, it was suddenly negative.
Mm.
Prior to that, we were only dealing with people who
Wanted it, needed it,
wanted it,
knew
understood the value of
it.
it, and they would sit there and they would, okay, well, now wait a minute, what are my limits on this? And they would scrutinize it to make sure. We weren't dealing with the people who didn't respect the coverage. We weren't talking to them. We were only talking to people who understood the value. Now I think we're dealing with people who don't understand the value, and I wish they did, because it is very important. I think it's foundational in society. I mean, it dates back, in this present form, it dates back to the ancient Greeks, and they haven't found a better way of dealing with potential risk out there. You buy a home, it's a beautiful thing, it's an exciting thing, but now you have a $300,000 asset that you're at risk of losing to a fire. And if that happens, that could devastate people. And so you buy insurance. You put the burden of that risk on the insurance company in exchange for a small premium. There's no better way of handling that. And I think if there's one thing they get from this, I want them to understand insurance is important.
It's important. It's noble, and it's an honorable profession, and it's a smart thing to do to
Absolutely.
understand.
And so is sales.
Mm,
Another thing
100%.
too is that people are, oh, I don't want to be a
It's a
salesperson.
dirty
Well,
word.
sales is very important. Everything in this room was sold to somebody by somebody else. It's where the economy starts. The
Every
economy
business
would not
owner
exist without salespeople.
is in sales.
Yeah. So
Every entrepreneur.
very noble, very you know, and insurance is very noble as well. And so you're in a great.
Yeah, I've always thought that, circling back, kind of put a bow on everything. It's like, as a business owner, to get started in insurance, you don't have to have a degree. You do have to get licensed, right? You get licensed. Hopefully, you have a really good mentor, but it's a hedge for inflation.
Mm-hmm.
It has all those abilities for you to pivot into different markets based on the day. I could focus on something else, practically try to ensure as much as possible that good business, you get that level of variety. Um, it's a it's good for your taxes. It teaches you about life insurance, and it allows you to invest in yourself with things like executive bonus plans, right? Um, and on top of all that, you're studying constantly the risk of loss. How to be a financial risk advisor is at the same time teaching you about how to build more foundational principles. Like Peter built his house on the hill. We have access to data for reconstruction costs,
Yeah.
weather,
Right.
weather simulations, all the information that you have access to. It makes you privy to build your business in a way where, as long as you're showing up, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're building it in a method where you're offsetting the risk, right? Think about all the things we talk about all the day: errors and emissions,
Yeah.
liability, life insurance. You're creating a culture that grows your business, that offsets the risk at the same time. I think that also makes us super unique, right? Like, for other
Absolutely.
business owners, the commercial insurance, hopefully you have a really good insurance agent that helps you. It's a piece that you take care of and then you get out of the way. You focus on generating revenue. But if you're not doing both at the same time, mitigating your risk and focusing on the revenue.
Right. Right. You gotta. It's 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 a number of things. It's not easy. I mean, I mentioned it's an effort thing, but it's not. It's an effort thing, but it's not. I don't mean to imply that it's easy. It does take a lot of effort, but if you're willing to put forth the effort, you're going to succeed.
And you end up around people that are also willing to and want to.
Yeah.
The high performers don't like being around underperformers, and underperformers don't like being around high performers. So inevitably, the world's just going to
Yeah, you got to
form
surround yourself with the good people. You
groups.
definitely do. You definitely do. But you touch on something too. Industries go through their ups and downs. Like real estate. You can have a hot real estate market, and then the bubble can burst, and it ends up challenging.
Yeah.
In insurance, that doesn't happen.
People don't cancel their car insurance and life
never
insurance in the
happens.
pandemic.
And that's kind of a guilty pleasure, I think, that over the years, I think we've
That's
been through
a good word for it.
a couple of recessions, ups and downs in the market as far as real estate goes, and we don't feel it.
We deserve it, don't you? Don't you think? Like those little perks every once in a while.
Yeah,
we earned it.
It is odd, but I mean, it's during those times that we tend to get an uptick in recruiting. That people who are perhaps disillusioned with the business that they started with, real estate or something like that. We end up talking to more people because they want to have that stability.
Well, it's crazy too from a company level. Like, just in the past 2 years, like, the leadership is committed to doubling the size of the larger agencies and
Right.
mid to larger agencies. That's literally part of the plan. I think that's amazing. It's like,
Yeah, I think they want more engagement, and so if you're demonstrating engagement as an agent, I think you'll benefit from that. If you're just kind of coasting, then perhaps not.
well, just like what Fabian was talking about the other day, it's like something crazy happens when you just get really focused. The opportunity is incredible. Well, we're gonna keep Dylan here too long. I can tell we put him to sleep, I think. It was an honor, Jeff. I really appreciate
thank you very much.
for coming in
I
for your
appreciate this. Was
time.
fun. I didn't really know how it was going to go. I thought I'd be like, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to get like, I'll blank in front of the microphone.
Yeah, I get worried about putting my foot in my mouth because there's a couple of ones where I'm like, oh man,
But it was
But
very conversational. I thought it was very, and again,
those
I'm
are the
going to
best
reiterate
parts,
this.
really, too, though.
I'm going to reiterate this. I'm proud of you.
Oh, that means a lot.
Keep doing what you're doing. Qualify again for toppers this year. Just, turn yourself into, a powerhouse, build your empire, hire more staff, and, just hold them accountable, and beautiful things will happen. Okay.
Amen. Those are beautiful words. It means a lot coming from you. And it's been an honor to be able to be around you and get your knowledge and experience. And we're just lucky, man. We're just so
Well,
lucky you're in New
it's
Mexico. You're one of these people. I've said it before with a few people, but like there are people here that are world class and you wouldn't know it. And it's just amazing that you're here.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's nice of you to say.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for listening.